Collapse, right now, before you say, I do. Isabella's fingers dug into Daniel's wrist. 200 guests watched. His bride stood 3 feet away, bouquet trembling with rage. Have you lost your mind? Daniel hissed. She's selling your technology to China. Sophie will be on a plane to Switzerland by next month. I heard everything. The officiant cleared his throat. Sir, your vows? Victoria's smile tightened. Darling, what is your maid doing at our altar? Daniel's eyes locked onto Isabella's. She saw it, the flash of doubt he'd been bearing for months. Trust me, she whispered, or lose your daughter forever. 3 seconds of silence. Then Daniel Morrison grabbed his chest and crashed to the ground. But that satisfying moment, satisfying moment of satisfying moment, satisfying of, satisfying, collapse was, satisfying, just, satisfying, beginning, what, satisfying, Isabella, satisfying, heard, satisfying, that, satisfying, morning, satisfying, would satisfying, haunt, satisfying, her, satisfying, forever, satisfying. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. 6 hours earlier, Isabella Reyes pressed her ear against the study door and stopped breathing. The kid won't be a problem. Victoria Lane's voice sliced through the wood like a razor, cold, calculating. Nothing like the honey-sweet tone she used around Daniel. I've already researched boarding schools in Switzerland. She'll be on a plane within the month. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel will protest, but he's too busy to raise a child properly. I'll frame it as being for her own good. Education, social advantages. He'll cave. Victoria laughed. And if he doesn't, I'll make his life hell until he does. Once we're married, I have all the leverage I need. No. Isabella's legs buckled. She grabbed the doorframe, heart slamming against her ribs. What about the technology? A pause. Victoria was listening to someone. Yes, I know it's proprietary. That's exactly why it's worth so much to your clients. After today, I'll have access to everything. The Chinese deals you've been pushing? I'll make them happen. Corporate espionage, child exile, and in 4 hours, this woman would legally become Sophie's stepmother. Isabella ran. She found Daniel in the garden, alone, staring at the altar where he'd marry Victoria in 4 hours. Mr. Morrison, Isabella. He turned, and she saw the exhaustion carved into his face. Is Sophie okay? She's fine, but I need to tell you something. About Miss Lane. His expression hardened. Not today. It has to be today. Isabella stepped closer. I just heard her on the phone. She's planning to steal your technology, sell it to Chinese competitors. And Sophie, stop. She's going to send Sophie away. Boarding school in Switzerland. She called her the kid, like she was, I said stop. Daniel's voice dropped to ice. I know what this is. You've grown attached to Sophie. It's natural. But you can't sabotage my wedding because you're afraid of losing your position. This isn't about my position. Then what is it about? He stepped toward her, eyes narrowing. You're a maid, Isabella. You clean floors and change diapers. You don't understand billion-dollar deals or prenuptial agreements or the pressure I'm under to give my daughter a mother. The words hit like fists. I understand that Victoria doesn't love Sophie, Isabella said quietly. I've watched her for 6 months. She's never held that baby, not once. She's adjusting. Some people aren't naturally maternal. She looks at Sophie like she's a stain on the carpet, something to be cleaned up and removed. Daniel's jaw tightened. For one moment, one fraction of a second, Isabella saw doubt flicker across his face. Then it vanished. I need you to trust my judgment, he said. And if you can't do that, we should discuss your future here. Isabella nodded slowly. Yes, sir. She walked away, bile rising in her throat. He wouldn't listen. He was too desperate, too lonely, too blinded by the hope that Victoria could fill the void his dead wife left behind. Sophie was going to pay the price. Isabella burst into the nursery and lifted Sophie from her crib. Bella! The 18-month-old squealed, grabbing Isabella's face with chubby fingers. Bella, stay? I'm here, baby. Isabella held her tight, tears burning. I'm not going anywhere. But that was a lie. Once Victoria became Mrs. Morrison, Isabella would be fired within the week. She'd seen the way Victoria looked at her. Cold recognition of a threat. The maid who'd earned Sophie's love had to go. And then Sophie would have no one. Isabella pressed her lips to the baby's soft hair. I won't let her take you. I promise. But how? She had no proof, no power, no voice anyone would believe. She was just a maid. 2 hours before the wedding, Maria, the head housekeeper, gathered the staff in the kitchen. The ceremony begins at 3. I want everyone on their best behavior. This wedding will have press coverage. Isabella barely heard her. Her mind was churning, desperate for a solution. Security will be tight. Mr. Morrison's company has been dealing with attempted corporate espionage. Someone's been trying to hack the servers and steal proprietary technology. Isabella's head snapped up. What kind of espionage? Maria frowned at the interruption. Chinese tech competitors, apparently. Why? The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Victoria wasn't just a gold digger. She was the insider threat, the mole. She'd been planted to seduce Daniel, marry into his empire, and deliver everything to his competitors. And nobody knew except Isabella. She tried one more time. Daniel was in his dressing room, bow tie hanging loose, staring at a photograph. Isabella recognized it immediately. Daniel and his late wife Sarah, both glowing with joy. Mr. Morrison. He didn't turn. I told you to drop this. I know about the corporate espionage attempts, the hacking, the Chinese competitors trying to steal your AI technology. Isabella stepped into the room. What if Victoria is the insider you've been looking for? Now he turned. His eyes were red-rimmed. Victoria is from one of the oldest banking families on the East Coast. Her father is a friend of 3 presidents. You're asking me to believe she's a corporate spy based on a phone call you overheard. I'm asking you to wait, investigate, make sure. I've waited long enough. Daniel's voice cracked. Sophie needs a mother. I can't do this alone anymore. I can't. He pressed his hand to his face. Sarah died holding her. Did you know that? Our daughter came into this world as her mother left it, and I've been trying to fill that hole ever since. Isabella's heart shattered. Daniel. She'd never used his first name before. Sophie doesn't need a mother who sees her as an obstacle. She needs people who love her. Victoria will learn to love her. And if she doesn't? He had no answer. Isabella turned to leave, then stopped at the door. I hope I'm wrong, she said. God, I hope I'm wrong about everything. She wasn't. The ceremony began at 3. Isabella stood at the back of the garden, Sophie in her arms. 200 guests filled the white chairs. The string quartet played. Flowers cascaded from every surface. And Victoria Lane floated down the aisle like an angel descending from heaven. Her gown was French lace. Her smile was radiant. Her eyes, when they passed over Isabella and Sophie, were empty. Daniel waited at the altar. He looked handsome. He looked trapped. Dearly beloved, the officiant began. We are gathered here today. Isabella held Sophie tighter. Marriage is a sacred bond. 4 hours ago, she'd heard Victoria planning to destroy this family. Now she was watching it happen in real time. Do you, Victoria, take Daniel to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Victoria's voice was silk and poison. And do you, Daniel, take Victoria to be your lawfully wedded wife? This was it, the moment of no return. Daniel opened his mouth, and Isabella made a choice. She pushed through the crowd. Guests gasped. Security moved toward her. She didn't care. Wait! Isabella reached the altar and grabbed Daniel's arm. What are you doing? Victoria hissed. Security! I need to speak with you. Isabella's eyes locked onto Daniel's. Now, it's about Sophie. The magic words, the only words that could make him move. Daniel's face went white. What's wrong? Is she... Please, inside, now. He didn't apologize to Victoria, didn't explain to the guests. He simply followed Isabella into the mansion, leaving chaos erupting behind him. The moment they were alone, Daniel grabbed her shoulders. What's wrong with Sophie? Nothing. She's fine. Isabella pulled free. But you won't be if you go back out there. His expression shifted from fear to fury. You lied to me? You pulled me out of my wedding because I couldn't watch you destroy your life. Isabella's voice broke. And Sophie's life, and everything you've built. You have no right. I have every right. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. For 2 years, I've loved that little girl like she was my own. I've watched her take her first steps. I've held her through fevers. I've been there for every nightmare, every smile, every moment that Victoria couldn't be bothered to witness. Daniel stared at her. And I'm supposed to stand there, Isabella continued, and watch a woman who sees Sophie as an obstacle become her legal mother? Watch her ship that baby to Switzerland while you're too busy saving your company to fight her? You don't know. I know what I heard. Victoria is selling you out. Your technology, your company, everything. And Sophie is just collateral damage to her. The silence stretched between them. If you're wrong, Daniel said slowly, you've destroyed my wedding, humiliated Victoria, ended your career. I know. And if you're right, then we have about 3 minutes to figure out how to stop her. Daniel's hands were shaking. Even if I believed you, and I'm not saying I do, what can we do? The wedding is in progress. 200 witnesses, the press, my board members. We buy time. Isabella wiped her face. We make it impossible for the ceremony to continue. How? The idea came to her fully formed. Insane, desperate, Perfect. You collapse right now. We make them think you've had a stroke. Daniel's jaw dropped. You want me to fake a medical emergency? Victoria won't marry a paralyzed man. Isabella stepped closer. She's here for your power, your mobility, your active role in your company. Take that away, and she'll either run or reveal herself. This is insane. Yes, Isabella met his eyes. But it's the only way to protect Sophie. Outside, Isabella could hear the crowd murmuring. Victoria's voice, sharp with anger, demanding answers. Daniel closed his eyes. My company, my reputation, can be rebuilt. Sophie's childhood can't. 10 seconds of silence. Then Daniel opened his eyes, and Isabella saw the decision in them. Tell me what to do. 90 seconds later, they were back in the garden. Victoria rushed toward Daniel, her face a mask of concern. Darling, what happened? Is Sophie? She's fine. False alarm. Daniel's voice was steady. Let's continue. The officiant nodded nervously. Very well. Where were we? Daniel, do you take Victoria? Isabella positioned herself at the edge of the crowd. Daniel turned to face Victoria. Victoria, he said, before I answer, I need you to know something. Victoria's smile flickered. Darling, I need you to know that I would do anything. Daniel's hand moved to his temple, his face twisted. I would do anything to protect my daughter. Then he collapsed. The screams were real. Victoria stumbled backward as Daniel crashed to the ground. Guests surged forward. The officiant dropped his book. Security shouted for everyone to stay back. And Isabella watched Victoria's face. There was no devastation, no heartbreak, no desperate love. There was calculation. Cold, rapid calculation. The expression of a woman watching her investment crumble and already planning her next move. Isabella had been right about everything. They carried Daniel inside. James, the head of security, took charge. Dr. Harrison arrived within minutes, quickly briefed on the situation. The diagnosis was delivered to the stunned guests. Apparent stroke, paralysis of the lower extremities, prognosis uncertain. The wedding was postponed indefinitely. Isabella slipped upstairs to check on Sophie. The baby was asleep, peaceful, unaware that her entire future had just been saved. I've got you, Isabella whispered. I've got you, sweet girl. A hand grabbed her arm from behind. Victoria's nails dug into her flesh. I don't know what you did. Victoria's face was twisted with rage, all pretense of elegance gone. But I'm going to find out, and when I do, you're going to wish you'd never been born. Isabella met her gaze without flinching. Sophie needs her dinner. Excuse me. She pulled free and walked away. Behind her, Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't over. Not even close. Isabella kept walking. She knew Victoria was right. The battle had just begun. Victoria's threat echoed in Isabella's mind for the next 3 hours. She stayed with Sophie, feeding her dinner, giving her a bath, reading her favorite story about the bunny who got lost and found his way home. Normal routines, safe rituals. But nothing felt normal anymore. Downstairs, the mansion hummed with crisis. Guests had been ushered out with hushed apologies. The wedding decorations were being dismantled. And somewhere in the master bedroom, Daniel Morrison was lying in bed, pretending his legs didn't work. At 8 o'clock, Isabella's phone buzzed. James, come to the security office, now. Leave Sophie with Maria. Isabella's stomach tightened. She found Maria in the kitchen, looking shell-shocked like everyone else, and handed off the baby with a mumbled excuse about needing fresh air. Then she descended to the basement. The security office was a room Isabella had never entered. Banks of monitors showing every corner of the estate. servers humming, equipment she couldn't name. James sat at the central console, his face grim. "Close the door." Isabella obeyed. "I've been monitoring Victoria's devices since Mr. Morrison briefed me," James said. "Phone, laptop, tablet, everything that connects to our Wi-Fi." "And?" James turned a monitor toward her. 2 hours ago, she made a phone call. Encrypted, but our systems captured it anyway. He pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the room. "The wedding didn't happen. He collapsed at the altar. Some kind of stroke. They're saying he might be paralyzed." A male voice responded, accent foreign. "This changes our timeline." "No, this accelerates it. If he's incapacitated, I'll have more access, not less. His executive team will be distracted. Security will be focused on his health. I can move faster." "And the child?"
"Still on schedule.
"I'll push the boarding school angle harder now. Tell him Sophie needs stability while he recovers. He'll be too weak to fight me." Isabella's hands curled into fists. "There's more," James said. He pulled up another screen. "I traced her communications over the past 3 months. She's been in contact with a shell company in Singapore that has direct ties to Zheng Technologies, one of Mr. Morrison's biggest competitors. They've been trying to steal our AI algorithms for 2 years." "She's the mole." "She's been the mole from the beginning." James leaned back. "This wasn't a romance that went wrong. This was a long-term operation. They targeted Mr. Morrison specifically, sent Victoria to seduce him, gain access, extract everything." Isabella felt sick. He trusted her. He was lonely. They knew that. They used it. "Does Daniel know?" "I'm about to tell him, but I wanted you here first." James met her eyes. "You figured this out before any of us. You risked everything to stop that wedding. Mr. Morrison needs to understand that." Isabella shook her head. "I don't need credit. I just need Sophie safe." "She will be, but we're not out of the woods yet." James stood. "Victoria doesn't know we're onto her. Right now, she thinks Mr. Morrison is genuinely paralyzed, that the wedding is just postponed. We need to keep it that way until we have enough evidence for prosecution."
"How long?"
"A few days, maybe a week. Long enough for her to make more moves, contact her handlers, maybe even try to access his files directly." James paused. "She's going to be watching you, Isabella. You embarrassed her today. She knows you're a threat."
"I can handle Victoria."
"Can you?" James's expression was grave. "This woman has been playing a role for 6 months without a single slip. She fooled one of the smartest men in the country. Don't underestimate her." Isabella thought of Victoria's grip on her arm, the venom in her voice, the absolute certainty that she would win.
"I won't,"
Isabella said. "But I'm not afraid of her either." They found Daniel sitting up in bed, the pretense of paralysis temporarily abandoned. His face was haggard, years older than that morning. "Tell me everything." James connected his tablet to the bedroom's smart TV and walked Daniel through it all. The intercepted phone calls, the traced communications, the connection to Zheng Technologies, the boarding school applications with Daniel's forged signature. With each revelation, Daniel's expression darkened. 6 months, he said when James finished. 6 months she's been in my home, near my daughter, in my bed. His voice cracked. And I never suspected. She's a professional, James said. This is what she does. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand that this wasn't your failure. You were targeted, manipulated by people who do this for a living. Daniel's hands gripped the bedsheets. Sophie. She was near Sophie every day. What if she'd... She didn't. Isabella spoke for the first time. "Sophie's safe. That's what matters." Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, in a way he never had before. "You tried to warn me, this morning, yesterday, probably before that, and I didn't listen. You didn't want to believe it." "I didn't want to be alone." The admission came out raw, broken. "Sarah died, and I've been drowning ever since. Victoria felt like a lifeline. I grabbed onto her without looking at what she really was." "You're not alone." The words escaped before Isabella could stop them. "Sophie loves you. The people who work for you respect you. And you have time now. Time to find someone real." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. "What's the plan?" he finally asked, turning back to James. "We maintain the paralysis story. Doctor, Harrison will examine you tomorrow and announce that you're showing signs of improvement. Possible recovery, but it'll take months. Victoria will either cut her losses and run, or she'll stay and try to salvage the operation." "She'll stay," Daniel said. "She's invested too much to walk away now." "Then we watch her. Every move, every communication. The moment she accesses your company files or transmits data to her handlers, we'll have her." "And Sophie?" "Isabella stays close to her, around the clock. Victoria won't try anything with a witness constantly present." Daniel nodded slowly. Then he looked at Isabella again. "I owe you an apology. You don't— I called you a maid, told you to remember your place, threatened your job." Daniel's voice was thick with shame. "You were trying to protect my daughter, and I treated you like you were nothing. You were scared and hurt, and she'd spent 6 months making you believe she was something she wasn't." "That's not an excuse." "No," Isabella agreed, "but it's a reason, and I've forgiven worse." Silence hung between them. "Stay," Daniel said. "Whatever happens with Victoria, whatever comes next, stay. Sophie needs you, and apparently I need someone who'll tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it." Isabella felt something shift in her chest, a door opening that she'd kept locked for 2 years. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. The next morning, Isabella woke to Sophie's crying. She was in the nursery in seconds, lifting the toddler from her crib. Sophie's face was flushed, her forehead warm. "Shh, baby, I've got you." "Bella," Sophie whimpered, clinging to her. "Bella, stay." "Always, sweetheart, I promise." She was checking Sophie's temperature when the nursery door opened. Victoria stood in the doorway. She was perfectly composed, hair styled, makeup flawless, silk robe draped artfully over her shoulders. The devoted fiancée, checking on her future stepdaughter. "How is she?" Victoria's voice was honey-sweet. "I heard crying." "A slight fever, nothing serious." "Poor thing." Victoria moved closer, and Isabella instinctively shifted Sophie away. "She's been so unsettled lately. All this chaos must be affecting her." "Children are resilient." "Are they?" Victoria's eyes fixed on Isabella. "Or do they just learn to adapt to whatever situation they find themselves in? To survive however they can?" The words felt like a threat. "Sophie is loved," Isabella said carefully. "She has everything she needs." "Does she?" Victoria tilted her head. "A father who works constantly, a mother who died before she could hold her, and a maid, a nanny, who seems to think she's something more." Isabella's grip on Sophie tightened. "I don't think I'm anything." "Don't you?" Victoria moved closer, close enough that Isabella could smell her perfume. Expensive, cloying. "I've seen how you look at Daniel, how you look at this family. Like you belong here, like you're not just the help." "I care about Sophie." "You care about a lot of things that aren't yours." Victoria's smile was razor sharp. "Daniel, for instance. The man you tried so desperately to save from me yesterday. I was protecting Sophie. Were you? Or were you protecting your position? Your access to this house, this child, this life that you've inserted yourself into? Isabella forced her voice steady. I think you should leave. Sophie needs rest. Victoria laughed, a cold, brittle sound. I'm not going anywhere, Isabella. This is my home now. Or it will be, once Daniel recovers and we reschedule the wedding. She leaned in, voice dropping. And when that happens, the first change I'm making is removing you from this house, from Sophie's life, permanently. Daniel won't allow that. Daniel will do what I tell him. He's desperate for stability, for family. I'll give him exactly what he thinks he wants, and he'll give me everything in return. Sophie whimpered in Isabella's arms, sensing the tension. You're scaring her, Isabella said. Good. Victoria's eyes were ice. She should learn early that the world isn't safe, that people aren't kind, that the only person you can trust is yourself. She straightened, smoothing her robe. I'll check on her later, when you're not hovering. She swept out of the room. Isabella stood frozen, heart pounding. Sophie clutched to her chest. Bad lady, Sophie whispered. Yes, baby, Isabella breathed. Very bad lady. An hour later, Isabella found Daniel in his study. He was supposed to be in bed, maintaining the Paralysis Act, but the door was locked and the blinds drawn. She came to the nursery, Isabella said without preamble. Threatened me. Threatened Sophie, in a way. Daniel's jaw tightened. What did she say? That she's going to remove me from this house, from Sophie's life. She told Sophie to learn early that people aren't kind. She said that to my daughter? She said it in front of her. Sophie was scared. She called Victoria a bad lady. Daniel closed his eyes. Out of the mouths of babes. Daniel, she's dangerous. Not just to your company, to Sophie. There's something wrong with her. Something cold. I know. He opened his eyes, and Isabella saw fury there. Controlled, focused, deadly. James intercepted another communication this morning. Victoria contacted her handlers, told them she's accelerating the timeline. She's planning to access my company servers tonight, while everyone's distracted with my recovery. Tonight? James is setting up monitoring. We'll capture everything she does, every file she touches, every transmission she makes. Daniel paused. It'll be enough to prosecute, to end this. And then? Then I watch her get arrested. Watch her realize that the maid she dismissed saw through her when no one else did. Daniel's voice hardened. And then I spend the rest of my life making sure Sophie never remembers her name. Isabella nodded. What do you need me to do? Stay with Sophie. Don't let Victoria near her again. And tonight, when everything happens, Daniel hesitated. I want you there, watching. You've earned that. I don't need, yes you do. Daniel stood, crossing to where Isabella waited. You saved my daughter's future, my company, probably my life, given what these people are capable of. I can never repay that. I didn't do it for repayment. I know. That's why it matters. They stood close, closer than they'd ever been. Isabella could see the flecks of gold in Daniel's brown eyes, the exhaustion and gratitude, and something else, something that made her pulse quicken. Tonight, she said, stepping back. We end this tonight. The hours crawled. Isabella stayed with Sophie all day, never letting her out of sight. They played in the nursery. They read books. They had lunch in the kitchen, far from wherever Victoria was scheming. Sophie sensed something was happening. She was clingier than usual, constantly asking for Bella and Daddy, rarely smiling. "Daddy, come?" she asked for the 100th time. "Daddy's resting, sweetheart. He'll come see you soon." "Daddy's sick?" "Daddy's getting better." Isabella kissed her forehead. "And soon everything will be back to normal. Better than normal." At 6 o'clock, Maria came to take Sophie for dinner. "James wants you in the security office," Maria said quietly. "It's happening." Isabella's heart lurched. She hugged Sophie tight, too tight probably, and forced herself to let go. "I'll see you soon, baby girl." "Bella, come back?" "Always, I promise." The security office was crowded, James at the main console, Daniel standing behind him, no longer pretending to be paralyzed. 2 other security officers monitoring additional screens. "She's in the master bedroom," James said as Isabella entered. "On her laptop, connected to our Wi-Fi." On the central monitor, Isabella could see the feed from a hidden camera. Victoria sat on the bed, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. Her face was focused, intent. No trace of the elegant socialite mask. "She's accessing the company VPN," James announced, "using Daniel's credentials." "How did she get those?" Daniel demanded. "Keylogger, probably. She's had months to plant surveillance in this house." "Can you see what she's downloading?" James typed rapidly. "Project Prometheus files. Your core AI algorithms. Source code for the neural network architecture." He whistled low. "She's taking everything." "Let her," Daniel said grimly. "Let her take it all. I want her completely exposed." They watched in silence as Victoria worked. She was methodical, professional, clearly trained for this. She downloaded file after file, organized them into encrypted folders, prepared them for transmission. "She's connecting to an external server," James said. "Singapore, the shell company address." "She's transmitting. Uploading now." On the screen, Victoria's face showed nothing. No guilt, no hesitation. Just cold efficiency as she stole everything Daniel had built. Isabella felt sick. This woman had kissed Daniel, had stood at an altar and promised to love him forever. And the whole time, she'd been planning to destroy him. "Upload complete," James announced. "She's disconnecting from the VPN, clearing her browser history." Victoria closed the laptop, stood, checked her reflection in the mirror. She smoothed her hair, adjusted her expression. And just like that, the mask was back. The elegant fiancé, the concerned partner. "Where's she going?" Daniel asked. "Looks like she's heading to your room, to check on her recovering fiancé." Daniel's hands clenched. "Let her come." They moved fast. James coordinated with the security officers. Daniel returned to his bedroom, positioning himself in bed. Isabella was told to wait in the hallway, close enough to hear, hidden enough to not be seen. Victoria knocked on Daniel's door 3 minutes later. "Darling, are you awake?" "Come in." Isabella heard the door open, then close. "How are you feeling?" Victoria's voice was dripping with concern. "Dr. Harrison said you're showing improvement." "I am. My legs are starting to respond." "That's wonderful." A pause. Victoria crossing to the bed, probably touching him, performing affection. "I was so worried when you collapsed yesterday." "I know. I'm sorry I scared you." "Sorry? You have nothing to be sorry for. This was just a setback. We'll reschedule the wedding when you're ready." "Actually," Daniel said slowly, "I wanted to talk to you about that." "About the wedding?" "About us. About our future." Silence. Isabella pressed closer to the wall, straining to hear. "I've been thinking," Daniel continued, "about what matters, about what I want for Sophie." "I want everything for Sophie too. You know that." "Do I?" "Daniel, what's wrong? You're scaring me." I heard you, Victoria. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop.
Heard me? I don't understand.
This morning, in the nursery, telling Isabella that you're going to remove her from Sophie's life. Telling my daughter that the world isn't safe and people aren't kind.
I was just... Daniel, she provoked me. That woman is obsessed with Sophie. It's unhealthy.
Isabella is the reason Sophie is fed and bathed and loved every single day. She's been more of a mother to my daughter than you've ever pretended to be.
That's not fair.
What's not fair is that I almost married a woman who sees my child as an obstacle. Daniel's voice hardened. What's not fair is that I trusted you with my family, my company, my heart, and you've been selling all of it to my competitors. The silence that followed was deafening. I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria finally said. Her voice had changed, still controlled, but with an edge of steel beneath the silk. Project Prometheus, neural network architecture, core AI algorithms. Daniel paused. You transmitted all of it to your handlers in Singapore tonight. We have the footage.
This is insane. You're paranoid. The stroke must have...
There was no stroke, Victoria. It was a performance. Just like yours has been a performance for the past 6 months. Footsteps. Victoria moving. Isabella tensed.
You're making a terrible mistake,
Victoria said. I am Victoria Lane. My family... Your family is about to be humiliated by federal charges of corporate espionage and conspiracy. Daniel's voice was cold. But that's not my concern. My concern is my daughter, my company, and getting you out of our lives forever. You have no proof. We have everything. Phone calls, emails, server logs, video footage. You weren't as careful as you thought. Or maybe you just underestimated how far a father would go to protect his child. A long pause. Then Victoria laughed. It wasn't the polished social laugh Isabella had heard at dinner parties. It was something else entirely. Bitter, dark, almost unhinged. You think you've won? Victoria's voice dripped with contempt. You've won nothing. My people will bury you. Your precious algorithms are already being reverse engineered. Your company will be obsolete within a year. Maybe, but you'll be watching from a prison cell. Will I? Victoria's tone shifted again, dangerous now, desperate. Or maybe I'll walk out of here right now, before your security can react, before anyone can stop me. I wouldn't try that. Why not? What are you going to do, Daniel? Tackle me? I thought you were paralyzed. I am many things. Paralyzed isn't one of them. Scuffling. A gasp. Isabella burst through the door. Victoria was halfway to the window, but Daniel had caught her wrist. James and his officers poured in from the other entrance. Victoria's face, finally, truly exposed, was twisted with fury. Let go of me! Victoria Lane, James said. You're being detained for theft of trade secrets and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. Federal agents are on their way. This is kidnapping, false imprisonment. My lawyers will... Your lawyers will be busy. Daniel released her wrist and stepped back. Very busy. Victoria's eyes swept the room. James, the officers, Daniel. Then they landed on Isabella. You. The word was a curse. This was you, the maid who couldn't mind her own business. I was minding my business, Isabella said quietly. Sophie is my business. That child isn't yours. She'll never be yours. And when I get out, you won't. Daniel moved to stand beside Isabella. You're going away for a long time. And when you finally do get out, Sophie won't even remember your name. Victoria opened her mouth, to curse, to threaten, to spew more venom, but James's officers were already moving her toward the door. This isn't over, she screamed as they dragged her away. "This isn't—" The door closed. Silence. Daniel let out a breath that seemed to empty his entire body. His shoulders sagged. His hands trembled. "It's done," he whispered. Isabella touched his arm. "It's done." He turned to her, and she saw tears in his eyes. Tears he'd been holding back for hours, maybe days. "Sophie is safe." "Sophie is safe," Isabella confirmed. "Because of you. Because you listened, even when you didn't want to." "Because of you." Daniel shook his head. "You saw her. You saw what she really was when I was too blind, too desperate to notice." "You weren't blind. You were hopeful. There's a difference." Daniel laughed, a broken, exhausted sound. "Is there?" "Yes. Blind people don't change course. Hopeful people do." They stood there, closer than they'd ever been, the adrenaline of the confrontation still coursing through them. Outside, Isabella could hear Victoria being escorted through the mansion, her protests growing fainter. "What happens now?" Isabella asked. "Now?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Now I spend months dealing with federal investigators and board meetings and damage control. Now I explain to my daughter why the woman who is supposed to be her mother is never coming back. Now I try to figure out how to rebuild everything Victoria almost destroyed." "That sounds exhausting." "It does." Daniel looked at her. "But for the first time in 6 months, I'm not dreading it. Because Sophie is safe. Because the threat is gone. And because—" He hesitated. "Because I know I'm not doing this alone." Isabella's heart skipped. "You're not alone." "I know." Daniel reached out and took her hand. Not romantically, not yet, but with something that felt like the beginning of something new. "Thank you, Isabella, for everything." "Thank you for finally listening." He laughed again, but this time there was warmth in it. Somewhere in the mansion, Sophie was waiting. The crisis was over. The enemy was defeated. And for the first time since she'd overheard that phone call in the study, Isabella allowed herself to believe that everything was going to be okay. The federal agents arrived at midnight. Isabella watched from the top of the stairs as they escorted Victoria out of the mansion in handcuffs. The woman who had been so composed, so perfect, so absolutely in control, was now disheveled, mascara streaking down her cheeks, screaming threats that no one listened to. "You'll regret this, all of you. My family will destroy you." The doors closed behind her. The screaming faded. And then there was silence. Isabella released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "She's gone," Daniel's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing at the end of the hallway, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "She's gone," Isabella confirmed. "It's really over." "No," Daniel shook his head slowly. "It's just beginning. The investigation, the trial, the media circus that's about to descend on this family." He rubbed his eyes. "I need to call my PR team, my lawyers, the board." "It's midnight." "They'll answer." "Daniel," Isabella crossed to him, "those calls can wait until morning. You haven't slept in 2 days. You need rest." You need to be a functional human being when the chaos starts. And right now, you're running on fumes and adrenaline." She touched his arm, gently. "Sophie needs a father who can think clearly. Give yourself a few hours." Daniel stared at her. Something in his expression shifted. The CEO mask slipping to reveal the exhausted, overwhelmed man beneath. "When did you become the one giving orders?" "About 30 seconds after I dragged you off your own altar." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Fair point. Go to bed. I'll stay with Sophie. If anything happens, I'll wake you." Isabella, go. He went. Isabella stood alone in the hallway, listening to his footsteps fade. The mansion was quiet now. The staff had been sent home, the security team was doing perimeter checks, and somewhere in a federal vehicle, Victoria Lane was learning that her careful plans had crumbled to dust. Good. Isabella climbed the stairs to the nursery. Sophie was still asleep, thumb in her mouth, completely unaware of the drama that had unfolded around her. Isabella settled into the rocking chair by the crib and watched the baby breathe. Safe. Sophie was safe. That was all that mattered. The next 3 weeks were chaos. News of Victoria's arrest leaked within hours. By morning, reporters were camped outside the mansion gates, cameras flashing every time a car entered or exited. The story spread like wildfire. Billionaire's fiancé arrested for corporate espionage. Tech titan's wedding shocker. Spy in the bedroom. The headlines made Isabella sick. Daniel handled it with a grace she hadn't expected. He gave carefully worded statements to the press. He met with federal investigators daily. He reassured his board, his shareholders, his employees that Morrison Technologies was stronger than one betrayal. But Isabella saw what no one else did, the toll it was taking on him. She found him in the nursery at 2 a.m., 3 days after Victoria's arrest. He was sitting in the rocking chair, Sophie asleep in his arms, tears streaming silently down his face. "Daniel?" He looked up, startled, wiped his face quickly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just needed to see her." Isabella crossed the room and knelt beside the chair. "You don't have to apologize. She's your daughter." "I almost gave her to a monster." His voice cracked. "Victoria was going to ship her to the other side of the world, and I was going to let it happen. I was going to marry that woman and hand over everything, my company, my child, my life. But you didn't. Only because you stopped me." Daniel looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed. "If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't risked everything to tell me the truth—" "But I was there, and I did tell you. And you listened." "Eventually." "Eventually is better than never." Daniel laughed softly, a broken sound. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Find the silver lining. After everything that's happened, everything I put you through, the threats, the dismissals, treating you like you were nothing, you're still here, still finding ways to make me feel better." Isabella reached out and touched Sophie's tiny hand. The baby stirred, then settled. "I'm not here for you," she said quietly. "I'm here for her. I've always been here for her." "I know." Daniel's voice was soft, but I'm starting to hope that might change. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, unspoken, undefined, but real. Then Sophie whimpered in her sleep, and the moment broke. "I should put her down," Daniel said, standing carefully, "and you should get some rest. You've been running yourself ragged taking care of both of us." "Someone has to." "Isabella." He paused at the door, Sophie cradled against his chest. "Thank you. For everything. For staying." "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." 2 weeks later, Victoria Lane was formally indicted on 12 federal charges. Isabella heard the news from James, who'd become something of an unlikely ally in the weeks since the arrest. The charges included theft of trade secrets, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, and money laundering. "She's looking at 20 years minimum," James said. "Her lawyers are trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the feds aren't budging. They want to make an example of her." "Good." "There's something else." James hesitated. During the investigation, they uncovered more about her operation. Victoria wasn't working alone. She had handlers, contacts, a whole network. "Are they being arrested too?" "Some of them, but the main players are overseas, beyond our jurisdiction. James's expression was grim. Which means Victoria is the only one who's going to pay for this. The people who actually planned the operation, who targeted Mr. Morrison specifically, they're going to walk away clean. Isabella's stomach turned. That's not justice. No, it's not. But it's reality, James sighed. The good news is, Mr. Morrison's technology is secure. The files Victoria transmitted were corrupted. We planted a virus in them before she sent them. Anything her handlers downloaded is useless.
Daniel didn't mention that. He doesn't know yet. I wanted to tell him in person, but he's been in meetings all day. James studied her. You've been spending a lot of time with him lately. With both of them. Isabella stiffened. Sophie needs consistency, and Daniel needs support. Is that all it is? What are you implying? James held up his hands. Nothing, just making an observation. You two have been through something intense together. It's natural for feelings to develop. There are no feelings. He's my employer. Is he? James's eyebrow raised. Because from where I'm standing, you look more like family. Isabella didn't have an answer for that. That evening, Daniel asked her to stay for dinner. It wasn't the first time. They'd been eating together most nights since Victoria's arrest, Sophie between them in her high chair. But something felt different tonight. The air was charged with unspoken tension.
The board meeting went well, Daniel said, cutting Sophie's food into tiny pieces.
They've agreed to increase security protocols across all divisions, and they voted to give me a vote of confidence. That's good. It is, he paused. They also asked about you.
Isabella's fork stopped halfway to her mouth.
Me? Apparently, word has spread about what you did. Stopping the wedding, uncovering Victoria's plot. The board wanted to know who you were, what your role in the household was. And what did you tell them? The truth? Daniel's eyes met hers. That you're the reason my company still exists. That you're the reason my daughter still has a father. That you're... He stopped, swallowed. That you're the most important person in this house.
Isabella's heart stuttered.
Daniel.
I know. He looked away.
It's too soon. Too complicated. You work for me, and the power dynamics are... Stop! He looked up, surprised. Stop analyzing it.
Isabella set down her fork.
Stop treating this like a business problem to be solved. Whatever this is between us, if there even is a this, it doesn't fit into neat categories. It's messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea.
Probably?
Definitely. She almost smiled. But I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. And I think you are too.
Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Sophie babbled happily between them, oblivious to the tension crackling across the table. I haven't felt anything, Daniel said slowly, since Sarah died. I've been numb, going through the motions, pretending to be alive while something inside me stayed frozen. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. Until you stood up to me, told me I was making a mistake, refused to let me destroy my family. You woke something up, Isabella. Something I thought was dead. Isabella's breath caught. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it for Sophie. That's part of why it matters. His hand closed around hers. You love my daughter, genuinely, completely, without any agenda. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? She's easy to love. So are you. The words hung in the air between them. Bella, kiss, Sophie announced loudly, smashing her hands together in what she apparently thought was a kissing motion. Daddy, kiss Bella. Isabella laughed, a surprised, slightly hysterical sound. Your daughter has opinions. She's always been opinionated. Daniel's smile was warm, real. The first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Gets it from her mother. Which one? The question slipped out before Isabella could stop it. She froze, horrified at herself. But Daniel didn't look offended. He looked thoughtful. Sarah gave birth to her, he said quietly. But you've raised her. You've been there for every milestone, every nightmare, every ordinary day. Sophie doesn't remember Sarah. She was too young. But she'll always remember you. You're the only mother she knows. Isabella's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I know. You couldn't replace Sarah any more than I could replace your mother. Daniel squeezed her hand. But maybe we could be something new, something different, something that honors what we've lost while building something worth having. That sounds like a proposal. It's not. Not yet. He smiled again. I know better than to rush things. We've both seen where that leads. Victoria. Victoria. Daniel nodded. I spent 6 months with her and never knew her. I've known you for 2 years. I've seen you at your best and your worst. I've watched you sacrifice your job, your security, your future, all for a child who isn't even yours. She is mine. The words came out fierce, protective. Maybe not by blood, but she's mine. I know. Daniel's voice was thick. That's exactly my point. Sophie chose that moment to fling a piece of chicken across the table. It landed in Isabella's water glass with a splash. Nice shot, sweetheart, Daniel said dryly. The tension broke. Isabella laughed, really laughed, and after a moment, Daniel joined her. This is what I want, he said, when the laughter faded. This. Messy dinners and inside jokes, and a family that actually feels like a family. With me? With you. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. If you'll have us. Isabella looked at the man across the table, exhausted, imperfect, carrying scars she was only beginning to understand. She looked at Sophie, who was now trying to stuff broccoli up her nose. She thought about the life she'd been living, invisible, dispensable, always on the outside looking in. And she made a choice. Ask me again in 6 months, she said, when the trial is over and the chaos has settled, when you've had time to process everything that's happened. 6 months. I'm not saying no. I'm saying not yet. Isabella squeezed his hand. We both deserve a relationship that isn't born from crisis, something that grows naturally, without the pressure of everything that's happened. Daniel nodded slowly. That's fair. It's more than fair. It's smart. She stood, lifting Sophie from her high chair. Now, this one needs a bath. She's wearing more dinner than she ate. Isabella. She paused at the door. 6 months, Daniel said. I'll ask again in 6 months. And when I do, I'm going to do it right. Isabella's heart swelled. I'm counting on it. The months that followed were unlike anything Isabella had experienced. The media attention gradually faded as newer scandals captured public interest. Victoria's trial date was set, then postponed, then set again. The Morrison household settled into a new rhythm, quieter, calmer, more like an actual home than the sterile showpiece it had been under Victoria's influence. Isabella's role evolved without anyone officially acknowledging it. She still cared for Sophie, but now she also joined Daniel for breakfast. She attended parent-teacher conferences at Sophie's new daycare. She sat beside Daniel during his increasingly rare evening work sessions, reading or playing with Sophie while he typed away. They didn't kiss. They didn't share a bed. But the intimacy between them grew anyway, in shared glances across crowded rooms, in the way Daniel's hand found the small of her back when they walked,
in Sophie's delighted shriek of "Mama Bella!" when Isabella appeared each morning. Mama Bella. The first time Sophie said it, Isabella froze. Her eyes flew to Daniel, expecting what? Anger? Hurt? The ghost of his dead wife demanding recognition? Instead, she found him smiling. "She's not wrong," he said quietly. "You're the only mother she's ever known." "I don't want to overstep." "You're not." Daniel crossed to her and took her hands. "Sarah would have wanted Sophie to have a mother who loves her. And you do. You love her with everything you have." "I do." "Then let her call you what she wants to call you. Names are just words. Love is what matters." Isabella let the tears fall then, tears she'd been holding back for weeks, months, maybe years. Daniel held her while she cried, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring words she couldn't hear but somehow understood. When she finally pulled back, Sophie was tugging at her pants leg. "Mama Bella sad?" Isabella laughed, wiping her face. "No, baby. Mama Bella is happy. So happy." Sophie considered this. Then she raised her arms. "Up!" Isabella lifted her, breathing in baby shampoo and innocence and love. So much love she thought her heart might burst. "I've got you," she whispered. "Mama Bella stay?" "Always, sweetheart. I'll always stay." 4 months after Victoria's arrest, the trial began. Isabella attended every day, sitting in the gallery with Daniel and a team of lawyers. Sophie stayed home with Maria. She was too young to understand any of this, and Isabella wanted to keep it that way. Victoria looked different in the courtroom. Gone was the glamorous socialite, the polished seductress. In her place sat a woman in prison orange, her hair limp, her face pale and drawn. She'd lost weight, lost her polish, lost everything that had made her dangerous. But her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, burning with hatred every time they landed on Isabella. "She blames you," Daniel murmured during a recess. "Her lawyers tried to argue that you entrapped her, that you manipulated me into turning against her. That's ridiculous." The jury didn't buy it either. Daniel's hand found hers under the gallery bench. "But she believes it. She's convinced herself that she would have won, if not for you." "Maybe she would have." "No." Daniel's voice was firm. "She would have destroyed us. You just saw it before I did." Victoria took the stand on the 3rd day. Her testimony was a masterclass in deflection. She'd been coerced, threatened, blackmailed by foreign agents. She'd never intended to hurt Daniel or Sophie. She'd been a victim, just like them. The prosecutors tore her apart. They played the recordings. They showed the emails. They displayed the boarding school applications with Daniel's forged signature. They presented expert testimony on the value of the stolen technology, the damage that would have been done if the virus hadn't corrupted the files. And through it all, Victoria maintained her mask, crying when appropriate, looking remorseful when necessary, playing the victim to perfection. But the jury saw through her, guilty on all 12 counts. When the verdict was read, Victoria's mask finally cracked. She screamed, actually screamed, lunging toward the prosecution table before the bailiffs restrained her.
"This isn't justice. That maid destroyed my life. She—"
The bailiffs dragged her out, still screaming. Isabella sat frozen in her seat, Victoria's words ringing in her ears. That maid. After everything, that's still how Victoria saw her. The help, the nobody, the obstacle that had ruined her plans. Daniel's arm wrapped around her shoulders. "It's over," he said. "She's going to prison for a long time. She can't hurt us anymore." I know. Isabella leaned into him. I just wish it didn't feel so hollow. What do you mean? She's going to spend years in prison, but she doesn't understand what she did wrong. She doesn't feel remorse. She just feels cheated. Isabella shook her head. There's no redemption in that. No closure. Just emptiness. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Maybe closure isn't about the other person, he said finally. Maybe it's about us. About what we choose to do with what we've survived. And what do we choose? We choose to move forward.
Daniel turned her to face him. We choose to build something beautiful out of the wreckage. We choose to be a family, a real family, despite everything that tried to tear us apart. Isabella looked into his eyes, brown with flecks of gold, warm and steady, and full of something that looked like love.
Is that what we're doing? Building a family?
I hope so. Daniel's voice was soft. I know I said 6 months. I know I promised not to rush things. But watching Victoria today, hearing her blame you for everything, when you're the reason Sophie still has a father. He took her hands. I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to pretend that what I feel for you is just gratitude or convenience or timing.
What do you feel?
I love you. The words came out simple, direct, certain. I love you, Isabella Reyes. I love your courage and your stubbornness and the way you see through people's masks. I love how you are with Sophie. I love that you chose us when you could have walked away.
Isabella's breath caught. Daniel? You don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But I needed you to know. After everything we've been through, I needed you to hear the truth. The courtroom was emptying around them. Lawyers were packing up files. Reporters were rushing out to file stories. The world was moving on, but in this moment, there was only the two of them.
I love you too,
Isabella said. Daniel's face transformed. Hope and joy and something like wonder breaking through the exhaustion. You do?
I do, she laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. I've been trying not to, trying to keep things professional, maintain boundaries, protect myself from getting hurt. But somewhere along the way, between the fake stroke and the midnight feedings and the trial, I fell in love with you. Both of you.
Daniel kissed her. It wasn't the passionate, desperate kiss of movies. It was soft, tentative, asking permission.
Isabella answered by pulling him closer, letting 2 years of suppressed feelings pour into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying.
Let's go home, Daniel said. Sophie's waiting for us.
Us.
Isabella tried the word on her tongue.
I like the sound of that.
Get used to it, Daniel took her hand. Because you're stuck with us now. They walked out of the courthouse together, leaving Victoria Lane and her shattered schemes behind. The future was waiting, and for the first time in her life, Isabella wasn't afraid of it. Sophie was waiting at the door when they came home.
Mama Bella, Daddy!
She launched herself at Isabella's legs with the force of a tiny hurricane.
Home! Home!
Isabella scooped her up, burying her face in Sophie's soft curls. The smell of baby shampoo and innocence washed over her, a reminder of everything she'd been fighting for.
We're home, baby girl. We're home.
Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a long moment, they just stood there. A family. Finally, truly, a family.
Bad lady gone?
Sophie asked, her small face serious. Isabella glanced at Daniel. They'd been careful about what they said around Sophie, but children understood more than adults gave them credit for. The bad lady is gone, Daniel confirmed. She can't bother us anymore.
Good.
Sophie nodded firmly.
Bella stay forever now.
That's the plan, Isabella said, her voice thick. Maria appeared in the hallway, dabbing at her eyes with her apron.
I saw the news. All 12 counts?
All 12. Daniel released his family, and turned to the housekeeper. She's going away for a very long time.
Thank God.
Maria crossed herself.
That woman had the devil in her eyes. I knew it from the first day she walked in here.
You knew? Isabella raised an eyebrow.
You never said anything. Who is going to listen to me? I'm just the housekeeper.
Maria's expression softened. But you made him listen. You saved this family.
We all did, Isabella said. Everyone who saw through her. Everyone who helped. Maria huffed. False modesty doesn't suit you, girl. Take the credit. You earned it. Sophie tugged at Isabella's hair.
Bella, hungry. Hungry? You just had dinner. Hungry again.
Daniel laughed, a real laugh, lighter than anything Isabella had heard from him in months. She's definitely my daughter. Bottomless pit. I'll make something, Maria said, already heading toward the kitchen. A celebration dinner. We have much to celebrate. As she disappeared, Daniel took Isabella's hand. She's right, you know. We do have much to celebrate.
The verdict?
That, and other things. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I meant what I said at the courthouse. Every word. Isabella's heart quickened.
I know.
And now that it's over, the trial, the chaos, all of it, we can actually start building something.
Something real. What did you have in mind? Daniel's expression grew serious. I want you to move out of the staff quarters.
Isabella blinked.
What?
I want you in the family wing, next to Sophie's room, where you belong. He paused. Where you've always belonged.
Daniel, that's
Too fast? Too presumptuous?
a lot, she finished.
It's a lot. I know. He stepped closer. But I'm done with half measures. I'm done pretending you're just the nanny when everyone in this house knows you're so much more. Sophie calls you Mama Bella. You've risked everything for this family. At some point, we have to stop dancing around the truth and actually live it. Sophie squirmed in Isabella's arms.
Down! Want down!
Isabella set her on her feet, and the toddler immediately took off toward the kitchen, presumably to supervise Maria's cooking. She's fearless, Daniel said, watching his daughter go. Just like you.
I'm not fearless. I was terrified every step of the way.
That's what makes it brave. Doing the right thing, even when you're scared.
Daniel cupped her face in his hands. I've never met anyone like you, Isabella. I thought I knew what love was. I thought I'd had my chance and lost it when Sarah died. But this, what I feel for you, it's different. It's not replacing what I had with her. It's something entirely new. I don't want to replace her. You couldn't, and I wouldn't want you to. Daniel's voice was gentle. Sarah gave me Sophie. She gave me years of happiness. But she's gone. And I hope, she would want me to be happy again. She would want Sophie to have a mother who loves her. Isabella's eyes burned with tears she was too tired to hold back. I do love her. So much it scares me sometimes. I know you do. I see it every day. Daniel pressed his forehead to hers. So move into the family wing. Let us be a family in every way that matters. And when you're ready, whenever that is, I want to make it official.
Official? I want to marry you, Isabella. Not tomorrow, not until you're sure, but someday. He pulled back to look at her. Someday I want to stand at that altar again, the same altar where you saved my life, and make vows that actually mean something, to a woman who actually deserves them. Isabella laughed through her tears. That's quite a speech. I've been practicing.
I can tell.
Is that a yes?
It's a yes to moving into the family wing.
Isabella kissed him softly.
The rest, ask me again when we've had time to breathe, when this doesn't feel like a fever dream.
Fair enough. Daniel smiled against her lips. But I'm going to hold you to that. The next 2 months were a revelation. Isabella moved into the suite next to Sophie's nursery, A beautiful room with its own bathroom and a window overlooking the garden where Sophie loved to play. The staff adjusted without comment, as if they'd been expecting this all along. Maybe they had. Her relationship with Daniel evolved gradually, naturally, without the pressure of crisis driving every moment. They had breakfast together every morning. They took turns putting Sophie to bed. They talked late into the night about everything and nothing. His childhood, her childhood, the dreams they'd abandoned, the hopes they were building. And they laughed. God, how they laughed. "You should have seen my first attempt at cooking," Daniel said one evening, sprawled on the nursery floor while Sophie used him as a jungle gym. "I tried to make Sophie oatmeal when she was 6 months old. Nearly set the kitchen on fire." "You did not." "Ask Maria. She still brings it up every time I go near the stove." He caught Sophie as she tumbled off his chest. "I'm a man of many talents. Cooking is not one of them." "Good thing I'm here then." "Very good thing." Daniel pulled Isabella down beside him. "The best thing." Sophie immediately crawled onto Isabella's stomach.
Mama Bella's story, please.
"What kind of story?"
Princess story.
"Again?" Isabella pretended to groan. "We've read every princess story in this house."
New story. Mama Bella story.
Isabella glanced at Daniel, confused. "I don't know any new princess stories." "She doesn't want you to read one." Daniel's eyes were soft. "She wants you to tell one. About yourself."
About myself?
"You're her princess," Daniel said quietly. "You saved the kingdom from the evil queen. In her mind, you're the hero of the story." Isabella's throat tightened. She pulled Sophie closer, breathing in the now familiar scent of baby shampoo and love. "Okay," she said. "I'll tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a girl who had nothing. No money, no family, no home. She worked in a big castle, cleaning floors and folding laundry, and she thought that was all she'd ever be." Sophie's eyes were wide, rapt. "But then she met a little princess, the tiniest, most beautiful princess in all the land. And the princess didn't care that the girl was poor or unimportant. The princess just loved her, unconditionally, completely." "Princess Sophie," Sophie whispered. "That's right." Isabella kissed her forehead. "Princess Sophie." And the girl loved Princess Sophie so much that when an evil woman came to hurt her, the girl became brave, braver than she'd ever been. She stood up to kings and queens and guards and everyone who told her she was nobody, because protecting Princess Sophie was more important than anything. "What happened?" Sophie breathed. "The evil woman was defeated, the princess was safe, and the girl," Isabella's voice cracked, "the girl found her family. The family she'd always wanted. The family she was always meant to have." Daniel's hand found hers in the dim light. "Happy ending?" Sophie asked. "The happiest ending," Isabella confirmed. "The girl, the princess, and the king all lived together in the castle, and they loved each other every single day." Sophie yawned, satisfied. "Good story. Time for bed, princess." "Mama Bella stay?" "Mama Bella's not going anywhere." Isabella stood, lifting Sophie to her hip. "I'll always be right here." 3 months after Victoria's sentencing, Daniel's lawyer called. Isabella was in the kitchen with Sophie when she heard Daniel's voice, sharp, urgent, coming from his study. She handed Sophie off to Maria and crossed the hallway, knocking softly on the door. "Come in." Daniel was at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, face pale. "Are you sure about this?" He listened. "No, I understand. Thank you for letting me know." He hung up, stared at the phone like it might bite him. "Daniel, what's wrong?" "That was my lawyer. Victoria's attorneys have filed an appeal." The floor seemed to shift beneath Isabella's feet.
An appeal?
They're arguing improper evidence collection.
Claiming the recordings we made violated her Fourth Amendment rights because she had an expectation of privacy in our home.
That's ridiculous. James said the evidence was collected legally because she was using our Wi-Fi network and had no expectation of privacy on our property. But Victoria's lawyers are arguing that, as my fiancé, she had residential rights that protected her communications. Isabella sank into a chair.
What does this mean?
It means there might be another hearing, more litigation, more lawyers. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. It means she might get a new trial.
A new trial where she could walk free?
It's a possibility, a small one, but... Daniel's voice hardened. I can't let her win. I can't let her anywhere near Sophie again.
She won't.
Isabella stood and crossed to him.
She won't because we won't let her. We beat her once. We can beat her again.
You don't understand. Daniel looked at her with something like fear.
If there's a new trial, if she gets out on bail pending appeal,
Isabella, she threatened you. Specifically, by name. She blames you for everything. And Victoria Lane isn't the type to forgive.
A chill ran down Isabella's spine, but she refused to show it.
Then we prepare. We document everything. We make sure our case is airtight.
She took Daniel's hands.
We survived a corporate spy posing as your fiancé. We survived faking a stroke at your own wedding. We survived 3 months of federal investigation. An appeal is nothing.
You make it sound so simple.
It's not simple, but it's not impossible either.
Isabella squeezed his hands.
We're stronger now than we were then. We have each other. We have Sophie. And we have the truth on our side.
Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, the tension drained from his shoulders.
How do you do that? Do what? Make everything feel manageable, even when it's falling apart.
Practice, Isabella smiled.
Years of dealing with entitled socialites and temper tantrums. After Victoria, everything else seems easy.
Daniel laughed despite himself.
I love you.
I love you too. She kissed him quickly. Now call James. Tell him about the appeal. We need to be ready.
The appeal hearing was scheduled for 2 months later. Isabella spent those weeks in a state of controlled anxiety. She researched legal precedents. She talked to Daniel's lawyers about potential strategies. She made sure Sophie was never alone, even though Victoria was still locked up and couldn't possibly reach them. Paranoia, maybe. But Isabella had learned the hard way that Victoria Lane was capable of anything. 2 weeks before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Isabella was putting Sophie down for her nap when Maria appeared in the nursery doorway, her face troubled.
There's someone here to see you.
Me specifically? Who?
She says she's Victoria's mother.
Isabella's blood turned to ice.
Where is she?
In the formal parlor. Mr. Morrison is in a meeting. I didn't want to disturb him. You did the right thing. Isabella checked that Sophie was asleep, then straightened her clothes. I'll handle this. The woman waiting in the parlor was elegant, silver-haired, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Isabella's annual salary. She looked like an older version of Victoria. Same bone structure, same cold eyes. But there was something different about her expression. Something almost desperate. Mrs. Lane.
Miss Reyes?
Victoria's mother stood, not offering her hand.
Thank you for seeing me.
I don't think I should be speaking to you without a lawyer present. This isn't about the appeal. The older woman's voice wavered slightly. This is about my daughter. Your daughter is in federal prison for trying to steal from the man she claimed to love and exile his baby daughter. I don't think we have anything to discuss.
It doesn't excuse what she did. Nothing excuses that. But I wanted you to understand that the woman who tried to destroy your family, she was destroyed first, by people who should have protected her. Isabella sat down slowly, processing this information. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm dying. Mrs. Lane said it flatly, without self-pity. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I won't live to see Victoria released, if she ever is. And before I go, I needed someone to know that my daughter wasn't always a monster. She was a victim before she was a villain. What do you want from me? Nothing. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm not asking you to drop the charges or support the appeal. Victoria made her choices. She has to face the consequences. Mrs. Lane stood, gathering her coat. I needed to say it out loud. To someone who might understand what it's like to fight for a child against impossible odds. Isabella thought of Sophie, of the lengths she'd gone to protect her, of the mother who'd raised her, who'd died too young, who'd taught her that love was worth fighting for. I understand, she said quietly. More than you know. Mrs. Lane nodded. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, Miss Reyes, I'm glad my daughter lost. Sophie deserves better than what Victoria would have given her. Her voice broke. Some children are lucky enough to have mothers who love them. Sophie is one of them. Because of you. Then she was gone. Isabella sat alone in the parlor for a long time, turning the conversation over in her mind. Victoria as a victim. Victoria as a child who'd been shaped into a weapon by the very people who should have protected her. It didn't change what she'd done. It didn't erase the threats, the schemes, the cold calculation in those blue eyes. But it added a layer of tragedy to the story. A reminder that villains weren't born, they were made. The appeal was denied. Isabella heard the news from Daniel, who burst into the nursery with a grin so wide it threatened to split his face. It's over. Really over this time. The judge ruled that the evidence was properly collected, and Victoria had no expectation of privacy when committing crimes on private property. Her sentence stands. Isabella sagged with relief. Thank God. 20 years. No parole for at least 15. Daniel lifted her off her feet and spun her around. She's gone, Isabella. She can't hurt us ever again. Sophie, disturbed by the commotion, woke from her nap with a disgruntled noise. Sorry, Princess. Daniel set Isabella down and went to his daughter. Daddy's just happy. Daddy loud. Daddy's very loud when he's happy. Sophie considered this, then raised her arms. Up! Happy too! Daniel lifted her, and she immediately reached for Isabella, pulling them all into a three-way embrace. Happy family, Sophie declared. Isabella laughed through her tears. Yes, baby. Happy family. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Daniel found Isabella in the garden. She was sitting on the bench where they'd first talked after Victoria's arrest, staring up at the stars. The night was warm, the air thick with the scent of roses. Mind if I join you? Please. Daniel sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. What are you thinking about? Victoria's mother came to see me a few weeks ago. Daniel went still. What? She didn't threaten me or anything. She just wanted to talk about Victoria, about what made her the way she is. And? Isabella told him everything. The father who'd groomed Victoria, the mother who'd lost her, the dying woman who needed someone to know her daughter hadn't always been a monster. Daniel was quiet for a long time after she finished. Does it change how you feel about her? No. Isabella's voice was firm. Victoria made choices. She could have walked away at any point. She could have chosen not to hurt an innocent child. She didn't. She paused. But it makes me sad. For the little girl she used to be. For the mother who lost her. You have a bigger heart than I do. I have a mother's heart. Isabella looked at him. I know what I would do to protect Sophie. The lengths I would go. If someone had taken her from me, twisted her into something unrecognizable, I don't know if I could survive it. Daniel took her hand. She's safe. Because of you. Because of us. Because of you. He turned to face her fully. I need you to hear this, Isabella. Really hear it. You saved my daughter. You saved my company. You saved me from a marriage that would have destroyed everything I'd built. And you did it with nothing. No power, no leverage, no guarantee that anyone would believe you. I had to try. Most people wouldn't have. Daniel's voice was thick. Most people would have kept their heads down and protected themselves. You didn't. You fought for Sophie when no one else would. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to deserve me. You just have to love me. I do. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. More than I've ever loved anyone. More than I knew I could love. He kissed her under the stars, and Isabella let herself believe, really, truly believe, that the worst was over. That they'd earned their happy ending. That nothing would ever threaten her family again. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Daniel Morrison got down on one knee. They were in the garden, the same garden where Victoria had once walked down the aisle, where Daniel had collapsed to save his daughter, where their family had been forged in crisis and tempered by time. Isabella stood frozen, Sophie balanced on her hip, as Daniel pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I promised I would ask you properly, he said, when the chaos had settled, when we'd had time to breathe, when this didn't feel like a fever dream. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. Daniel, it's been 18 months since you stopped my wedding. 18 months since you risked everything to protect a child who wasn't even yours. 18 months of watching you become Sophie's mother in every way that matters. Daniel's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly as he opened the box. The ring inside was simple, a single diamond on a platinum band, but it caught the morning light and scattered rainbows across the grass. I've loved 3 women in my life, Daniel continued. My mother, who raised me, Sarah, who gave me Sophie, and you. He looked up at her with eyes that held nothing back. Sarah taught me that love was possible. You taught me that love was a choice. A choice you make every single day, in every small act of sacrifice and courage and devotion. Sophie squirmed in Isabella's arms. Daddy on ground? Daddy's asking Mama Bella something very important, Daniel said, his eyes never leaving Isabella's face. Daddy's asking her to be part of our family forever. Forever? Sophie's eyes went wide. Mama Bella stay forever? If she says yes. Isabella felt tears streaming down her cheeks. She hadn't even realized she was crying. Isabella Reyes, Daniel's voice cracked. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the woman who saved us? The answer was simple. The answer had been simple for months, maybe longer. Yes. Daniel's face transformed, joy breaking through like sunrise after a storm. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like promises and forever. Sophie, sandwiched between them, giggled with delight. Family hug! Family hug! Family hug, Daniel agreed, wrapping his arms around both of them. Our family. Isabella buried her face in his shoulder.
Sophie's small body warmed between them, and let herself believe that this was real. That after everything, the fear, the doubt, the battles fought and won, she had finally found her home. The wedding was set for spring. Unlike the spectacle Victoria had planned, this ceremony would be intimate. 50 guests, no press, just the people who mattered most, gathered to witness something real. Isabella threw herself into the planning with a focus that surprised even her. She'd never been the type to dream about wedding dresses or flower arrangements, but now she found herself poring over catalogs, agonizing over seating charts, debating the merits of ivory versus champagne tablecloths. "You're nesting," Maria observed one afternoon, watching Isabella rearrange the table samples for the third time. "Like a bird building something precious." "I just want it to be perfect." "It will be perfect, because it's real." Maria set down a cup of tea beside her. "The last wedding in this house was built on lies. This one is built on love. That's the only perfection that matters." Isabella looked up at the older woman, the housekeeper who'd watched everything unfold, who'd never questioned Isabella's place in this family, even when Isabella questioned it herself. "Thank you, Maria, for everything." "Don't thank me yet." Maria's eyes twinkled. "Wait until you see what I'm planning for the reception. I've been saving recipes for exactly this occasion." 3 weeks before the wedding, James requested a private meeting. Isabella found him in the security office, his expression grave. Her heart immediately seized. "What's wrong? Is Victoria?" "Victoria's fine. Still locked up, appeal denied, no chance of early release." James gestured for her to sit. "This is about something else. Something I've been investigating on my own." Isabella sat slowly. "You're scaring me." "I don't mean to, but you need to hear this before the wedding." James pulled up a file on his computer. "Remember Victoria's mother, the woman who came to see you? She said she was dying." "She was. She passed 3 weeks ago." Isabella's chest tightened. "I didn't know." Neither did Victoria at first. They weren't allowed to communicate. But after Mrs. Lane died, her lawyers contacted the prison. She left everything to Victoria: money, property, documents. James paused. "Including a letter that Victoria's lawyers tried to suppress, but that eventually made its way to the FBI. "What kind of letter?" James turned the monitor toward her. On the screen was a scanned document, handwritten, addressed to "Whoever finds this after I'm gone." Mrs. Lane spent her last months writing a full confession. Names, dates, amounts, everything her ex-husband did to turn Victoria into what she became. The shell companies he used, the foreign contacts he cultivated, the other operatives he trained. Victoria wasn't the only one. Isabella's head spun. "There are others?" "Were others. Based on this letter, the FBI has opened investigations into 12 individuals with ties to Lane's network. 3 have already been arrested. The rest are being monitored." James's expression softened. "But here's the part that matters to you. In her letter, Mrs. Lane specifically mentioned the Morrison case. She wrote that her daughter's failure was the best thing that could have happened, that you stopped a cycle that had been going on for decades." Isabella stared at the screen, reading the shaky handwriting. "The maid who saw through my daughter's mask saved more than just one family. She exposed a rot that has been spreading for 30 years. If there is any justice in this world, Miss Reyes will know that her courage mattered, that she made a difference beyond anything she could have imagined." "She wrote that about me?" "She specifically asked that you be told. It was one of her final wishes." James closed the file. "I thought you should know before you start your new life. The ripples of what you did are still spreading. Families that would have been destroyed are going to be saved because you refused to stay silent." Isabella sat in silence for a long moment, processing. A dying woman, estranged from her monstrous daughter, had spent her final weeks trying to undo the damage her family had caused. And she'd credited Isabella, a maid,
and nobody, a woman with nothing but courage and love, for starting the unraveling.
Thank you, Isabella finally said, for telling me.
You deserve to know. James stood. You're not just marrying into this family, Isabella. You're becoming part of its legacy. And that legacy, because of you, is one of integrity, of protection, of doing the right thing no matter the cost. Isabella left the security office with Mrs. Lane's words echoing in her mind. Her courage had mattered. She had made a difference. The night before the wedding, Isabella couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed in the family wing, the room that had become hers, filled with her books and her photographs and Sophie's drawings taped to the walls, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, everything would change. Again. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in." Daniel slipped through the door, barefoot, wearing the ratty t-shirt and sweatpants he only wore when no one was looking. "Can't sleep either?" "Nervous?" "Terrified." He crossed to the bed and sat on the edge. "You'd think after everything we've been through, a wedding would be easy." "Nothing about us has ever been easy." "No," Daniel smiled, "but it's always been worth it." Isabella reached for his hand. "Are you having second thoughts?" "Never." His grip tightened. "You?" "Not about you. Not about Sophie. Not about any of it." She hesitated.
But I keep thinking about everything that had to go wrong for this to go right. Victoria's betrayal, the fake stroke, the trial. If any of those things had happened differently, we wouldn't be here. Exactly. Isabella sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. "I almost didn't say anything, Daniel. That morning, when I heard Victoria on the phone, I almost convinced myself I was wrong, that I was just a jealous maid making up stories. But you didn't." "But I didn't." She looked at him. "Why not? I've been asking myself that question for 18 months. Why did I risk everything for a child who wasn't mine? For a family that treated me like furniture?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "I don't think the answer is complicated," he finally said. "I think you did it because it was right. Because you're the kind of person who does the right thing, even when it's hard. Even when no one's watching. Even when the cost is everything you have." That sounds like a superhero origin story.
"Maybe it is." Daniel shifted closer. "You know what I've realized? Heroes aren't people without fear. They're people who act despite their fear. They're people who see injustice and can't look away. They're people like you, Isabella. Ordinary people who do extraordinary things because they simply can't do otherwise." Isabella's eyes burned. "I'm not a hero." "You are to me." Daniel cupped her face. "You are to Sophie. You are to every family that's going to be saved because Mrs. Lane's letter exposed a criminal network that's been operating for decades." He kissed her forehead. "You are a hero. And tomorrow, I get to marry you." Isabella pulled him close, pressing her face into his chest. "Stay," she whispered. "Just for tonight. I don't want to be alone." "I thought it was bad luck to see the bride before the wedding." "We've had enough bad luck to last a lifetime. I think we're due for some good." Daniel laughed softly and stretched out beside her, pulling her into his arms. "Tomorrow," he murmured against her hair, "you become Mrs. Morrison." "Tomorrow," she agreed, "I become Sophie's mother. Officially. You've been her mother for a long time." "I know." Isabella smiled into the darkness. "But it's nice to make it legal." The wedding day dawned, clear and warm. Isabella woke to Sophie bouncing on the bed, already dressed in her flower girl outfit. "Mama Bella, wake up! Wedding day!" "I'm awake, baby girl." Isabella caught the toddler and pulled her down for a hug.
Are you excited?
Sophie, throw flowers, pretty flowers.
The prettiest flowers. Daniel had slipped out sometime before dawn, leaving a note on the pillow. See you at the altar. This time, I promise to stay standing. Isabella laughed, tucked the note into her jewelry box, and let Maria sweep her away for hair and makeup. The hours blurred together in a haze of preparation.
Stylists fussing over her curls. Someone pressing a glass of champagne into her hand. Maria crying in the corner, dabbing at her eyes and pretending she wasn't. And then, suddenly, it was time. Isabella stood at the back of the garden, watching the 50 guests take their seats. She saw James near the front, stoic as always. Maria beside him, still dabbing. Daniel's business partners, who had once looked through her like she was invisible, now rising to their feet in her honor. And at the altar, waiting for her, was Daniel. He was wearing a simple dark suit, nothing like the elaborate tuxedo from Victoria's wedding. His eyes were fixed on the back of the garden, on the woman he was about to marry, and even from this distance, Isabella could see that he was crying.
Ready?
Maria appeared at her elbow.
I've been ready for 18 months. Then go get your family.
Isabella walked down the aisle. Not to music. She'd vetoed the string quartet, wanting something simpler.
Not surrounded by white roses and silk ribbons. Just her, in a simple white dress, walking toward the man she loved, while their daughter waited at the altar with a basket of petals she'd already scattered everywhere. Daniel took her hands when she reached him. His palms were sweating. So were hers.
Hi,
he whispered.
hi.
You came. Wild horses couldn't have stopped me. The officiant began the ceremony. Words about love and commitment and the covenant of marriage. Isabella heard them distantly, her attention focused entirely on the man in front of her. This man, who had dismissed her concerns and then listened when it mattered. This man who had faked a stroke at her command. This man who had chosen her, not for her status or her connections or what she could do for his company, but for her heart. Do you, Daniel Morrison, take Isabella Reyes to be your lawfully wedded wife?
I do.
No hesitation, no doubt.
And do you, Isabella Reyes, take Daniel Morrison to be your lawfully wedded husband?
Isabella looked at him, at Sophie, bouncing impatiently beside them, at the future stretching out ahead, uncertain but full of promise.
I do.
Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Daniel kissed her, and the garden erupted in applause. Sophie, not to be left out, wedged herself between them, demanding kisses of her own.
Family,
she announced proudly to the assembled guests.
Daddy, Mama Bella, Sophie. Family forever.
Forever, Daniel agreed, lifting his daughter with one arm while keeping the other wrapped around his wife.
Forever,
Isabella echoed, tears streaming down her face. The word had never felt so solid, so real, so absolutely, beautifully true. The reception lasted until midnight, dancing under string lights, toasts that made Isabella laugh and cry in equal measure.
Sophie staying up way past her bedtime, too excited to sleep, eventually passing out in Maria's arms while the adults celebrated around her. James gave a speech that surprised everyone with its warmth.
I've spent my career protecting the Morrison family, he said, raising his glass. But I've never seen them as safe as they are right now. Because they finally have someone fighting for them from the inside. To Isabella, the bravest person I've ever known. Isabella buried her face in Daniel's shoulder, overwhelmed.
It's true, Daniel murmured. Every word.
Stop, you're making me cry again. Get used to it. I plan to spend the rest of my life telling you how amazing you are. The party wound down slowly, guests departing with hugs and well wishes, until finally it was just the three of them. Daniel carried Sophie to her room, while Isabella followed, watching her husband, settle their daughter into bed.
Mama Bella?
Sophie's voice was drowsy.
Yes, baby?
Best day ever. Isabella kissed her forehead. Best day ever. They left for their honeymoon 3 days later. 2 weeks in Italy, Rome, Florence, Venice, with Sophie in tow, because neither of them could bear to leave her behind. They ate gelato and visited museums and got lost in narrow streets that smelled like espresso and history. Sophie learned to say ciao and grazie and charmed every Italian grandmother they encountered. And Isabella learned what it felt like to be part of a family, a real family, the kind she'd dreamed about as a child after her mother died, when she was shuffled between foster homes and group houses and places that were never, ever home. "You're quiet," Daniel observed one evening in Venice. They were sitting on a balcony overlooking the canal, Sophie asleep inside, the city sparkling around them. "I'm happy," Isabella said. "I'm so happy it scares me." "Why scared?" "Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, for someone to tell me this was all a dream and I need to wake up now." Daniel took her hand. "It's not a dream." "I know, logically I know, but—" She struggled for words. "I spent my whole life on the outside, looking in at families like ours, knowing I'd never have that. And now I do, and I don't know how to trust it." "Then trust me." Daniel turned her to face him. "Trust Sophie. Trust the life we're building together. I can't promise nothing will ever go wrong. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that whatever comes, we'll face it together. You'll never have to be on the outside again." Isabella leaned into him, letting his certainty wash over her. "Together," she repeated. "Together." They returned home to find the mansion transformed. Maria had been busy while they were gone, organizing a welcome home celebration that included every staff member and many of Daniel's closest associates. There was a banner over the door. "Welcome home, Morrison family." And Sophie immediately demanded to be lifted so she could touch it.
Home, she announced. Sophie, home.
Isabella looked around at the faces gathered to greet them. People who had watched her go from invisible maid to lady of the house. People who had witnessed her transformation from nobody to somebody. Not a single one of them looked resentful or jealous. They looked happy. "You did this," Daniel said softly. "You made this house a home. For all of us." "We did it together." "No," he shook his head. "This was you. Your warmth, your love, your refusal to accept anything less than genuine connection." He kissed her temple. "You changed everything, Isabella. Everything." 1 year later, Isabella stood in the nursery, holding a newborn. Michael Daniel Morrison had arrived 2 weeks early, screaming his displeasure at the world and instantly wrapping every adult around his tiny finger. Sophie, now 3 years old, had declared herself his official protector and refused to leave his side.
"Baby brother,"
she told everyone who would listen.
"Sophie's baby brother. Sophie keep safe."
Isabella looked down at the infant in her arms, this tiny life she and Daniel had created together, and felt her heart expand until she thought it might burst. "You have his eyes," she whispered to Michael. "Your daddy's eyes." Daniel appeared in the doorway, Sophie riding on his shoulders. "How are my favorite people?"
"Tired, happy,
"Overwhelmed?" Isabella smiled at him.
all of the above."
Daniel crossed to her and pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to Michael's. Sophie leaned down from his shoulders to add her own kiss, nearly toppling them all. "Careful, princess."
Sophie gentle. Sophie always gentle with baby.
I know you are. Daniel lifted her down and settled her beside Isabella on the sofa. You're the best big sister in the world. Sophie beamed with pride.
Isabella looked at the four of them, her husband, her daughter, her son, her family, and thought about the journey that had brought her here. A maid who saw too much. A phone call that changed everything. A fake stroke that saved a real family. And a love that had grown from crisis into something unshakable. No regrets? Daniel asked, reading her expression. Not one. Not even the part where you had to convince a stubborn billionaire that his fiancée was a spy? Especially not that part. Isabella leaned into him, Michael warm against her chest, Sophie pressed against her side. That was the day I stopped being invisible. The day I realized I had a voice worth using. You were never invisible to me. I was, Isabella smiled. But that's okay. Because you see me now. You see all of me. And you love me anyway. I love you because of all of you. Daniel wrapped his arm around her. Every stubborn, courageous, impossibly brave part. Sophie tugged at Isabella's sleeve.
Mama Bella, story time?
What kind of story?
The princess story. The real one. About Mama Bella and Daddy and the bad lady and how we became family?
Isabella looked at Daniel. He nodded, eyes soft.
Okay,
she said. Once upon a time, there was a girl who had nothing. She worked in a big castle, invisible and alone. But then she met a little princess who needed her. And the girl realized that some things are worth fighting for, even when you're scared, even when no one believes you, even when the whole world says you're just a maid.
What things?
Sophie asked.
Family,
Isabella said.
Love. Home. And they lived happily ever after?
Isabella looked at Daniel, at Sophie, at Michael sleeping peacefully in her arms, at the life she'd built from nothing, brick by brave brick. Yes, she said, they lived happily ever after. And for the first time in her life, Isabella Reyes Morrison believed it with her whole heart. Because the maid who had once been invisible had become the center of everything. Because the woman who had risked everything had gained more than she ever dreamed. Because family wasn't about blood or birthright or status. It was about love. It was about choice. It was about showing up every single day for the people who needed you most. And Isabella would keep showing up for the rest of her life.